All right, so today we're going to talk about something really interesting. How to solve conflicts that seem, well, completely hopeless. We're diving into the work of Deepak Malhotra to unpack these hidden levers that can turn a total deadlock into a real breakthrough.
You know that feeling, right? You're in a negotiation, and you've hit a total impasse. You've made your best offers. You've tried to reason with the other side, but you're just not getting anywhere. It feels absolutely impossible.
So when we hit that wall, what do we usually do? Our brains kind of go to two places. We either throw more money at the problem, sweeten the deal, or we use whatever power we have, our muscle, to try and force the other side to agree.
But here's the thing. What happens when that's not enough? Or what if you don't really have a lot of money or muscle to begin with? Well, this explainer is going to show you three powerful and often invisible levers you can pull when your standard tools just aren't working.
Okay, let's get into it. Lever number one is all about controlling the narrative, or what experts call the frame. You can think of it like the lens that everyone is seeing the problem through. And if you can change that lens, you can change the entire conversation.
So just imagine this for a second. You want to bring a new technology, television, to your country. But a really powerful group of conservatives is absolutely convinced it's an instrument of Satan. Literally. How in the world do you negotiate that? You can't just offer them cash, and using force, that would be a total disaster. Now, faced with this seemingly impossible situation, King Faisal remembered a really counterintuitive strategy from his father. Instead of fighting their perspective head-on, he did something kind of brilliant. He actually yielded to it. So check this out. He doesn't argue that TV is a good secular tool. No, he completely adopts their religious frame and basically asks, okay, how can this technology serve our shared religious values? By broadcasting the Quran first, he proved that TV wasn't inherently evil. It was just a neutral tool that could actually be used for holy purposes. He totally reframed the entire debate without ever fighting it. All right, so that's the frame. Now let's move on to lever number two, the process. And this one isn't about what you're negotiating, it's about how you're negotiating. It's about setting the rules of the game before you even start playing.
For this one, picture it. It's 1983. You've got the co-founders of Sun Microsystems, Vinod Khosla and Scott McNealy. They sit down with the CEO of a huge Fortune 100 company and they hammer out a $10 million funding deal. They agree on everything, seal it with a handshake, deal done.
But then, things get complicated. They fly out to Chicago to sign the final papers, and the CEO shows up with a whole army, like a dozen lawyers and bankers, and this team acts like the handshake never even happened. They try to renegotiate every single term from scratch, thinking, they've got all the leverage now. And this is the killer move. Instead of getting sucked into arguing about the valuation or the investment size all over again, they just hit the brakes. They stopped everything and said, hold on, we're not talking about the substance of this deal right now. First, we need to talk about what just happened here. We had an agreement, we had a process, and you just broke it.
You see what they did there? They shifted the whole focus from the deal itself to the broken process. By refusing to let the other side use their power to just steamroll the rules, they forced them to come back to the original agreement. And the lesson is huge. Make sure you agree on the rules of engagement before you dive into all the details.
Okay, our final lever is empathy. And I know what you might be thinking. That sounds a little soft, right? Maybe a little touchy-feely for a tough negotiation. But in this context, empathy isn't about being nice. It's a power tool. It's about strategic understanding.
And this becomes absolutely critical when you're dealing with people whose actions just don't make sense to you. When they seem totally irrational or even just plain wrong. The point isn't to agree with them. The point is to understand them.
So let's be super clear. We're talking about strategic empathy. This is not about feeling sorry for them or having sympathy. Nope. It's about being able to see the world through their eyes. What do they really want? What pressures are they under? What are they afraid of? It's like mapping out their reality so you can find solutions that were invisible before.
The Cuban Missile Crisis is a perfect example of this. So on the left, you've got the US view. The Soviets were just being irrational, aggressive, basically starting a war. But when the Kennedy administration started to use strategic empathy, they saw a completely different picture, the one on the right. The Soviets weren't just being aggressive for no reason. They were terrified of US missiles already placed in Turkey, right on their border, and they felt they had to close this perceived missile gap. Once the US understood that fear, a path to de-escalation appeared. A quiet trade. We'll remove our missiles from Turkey, you remove yours from Cuba.
Empathy found a solution that pure force never could have.
So let's tie all of this together. What does it all mean for you? Well, the next time you feel like you are completely out of options, just remember you've got this powerful toolkit that goes way beyond just money and muscle. Let's recap.
When you feel stuck, remember you have these 3 levers. You have the power of the frame. Don't just argue your point, change the whole narrative. You've got the power of process. Negotiate the how before you get to the what. And you have the power of empathy. Map out their world to find those hidden solutions.
Look, these aren't just some high-level theories. They are real, practical tools that give you leverage when you feel like you have none. So the next time you face that deadlock, that impossible situation, ask yourself, which lever am I going to pull first? This is your new toolkit for negotiating the impossible.